Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to New Hope in the Lord. I'm Reverend Joseph, your host, and thank you for watching our broadcast today. I want to talk about the cross. You go into a lot of churches, most of them have a cross on the inside of the church, some have a cross on the outside of the church. Many people have made tons of money on the cross, jewelry. I have one on my ring right here, a cross. People have it on their neck. People have earrings. And it looks good, and it's nice. But the one who shed his blood and his broken body on the cross, his name is Jesus Christ. Somebody told me, because I did not watch the Super Bowl this year, somebody told me there was a very popular singer that they showed who had a cross and it was upside down. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't representing what Peter said. Don't crucify me straight up. I'm not worthy of being crucified straight up, so crucify me upside down, where Peter was crucified upside down. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the scientists have said the worst death to have is the crucifixion. Jesus could have died many ways, but he chose before the foundations of the world to die a vicious death. He who knew no sin became sin, so we could be the righteousness of God. He was not put to death by man. God the Father allowed it to happen. So my guest, Pastor John Lopez, could be a servant of the Lord, born again. And without an individual understanding that nobody comes to the Father except through Christ, all religion can't save you. No religion, only a relationship with Jesus Christ, and a changed life through the power of the Holy Spirit. So if you're not born again today, and this is not a terminology just the last 50 years. Jesus said it in John chapter 3, verse 3. Unless you're born again, you can't see the kingdom of God. God loves you. He died for you. He wants to give you a new life like he did Pastor John. Come unto him. Receive him into your heart. He'll change your life. Your name will be written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And then when you do die, because everybody's going to die, even though people don't think they're going to die because they're doing drugs and they're doing alcohol and they're doing all these crazy things, thinking they're going to live forever, but they will die, you know. And then you'll have a new life here on earth, and you will be a peaceful person within through the blood of Jesus. Pastor John, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. One time you were very busy working for your previously father called the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're working for your Father, eternal Father, who was the one who created the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me now, John, about your life now in contrast to the life that you had before you came to Christ.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, thank you for having me on your show, Reverend Joseph.
Yeah.
The life now that I have in Christ has been victorious. It's been amazing. You know, when you put your hand or you put your heart in the hands of God, he has a way of leading you in directions that you can't even understand. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you say, well, why is he leading me in this direction? And how is this door going to open? And how is this going to happen? And since March 8th of 1993, I gave my life to Christ, and it's been a wonderful journey, a journey of victory, a journey of learning to be humbled, a journey to be transformed. And I tell you, I would not change it for the world. I wish I would have given my life to him much sooner. I wish, you know.
I think every believer said that, and there are believers that come to Christ at an early age, mm-hmm. and God spares their mind mm-hmm. from insanity, mm-hmm. which is getting worse and worse. Young people are committing suicide. Mm-hmm. People don't know if they're a boy or a girl. They want to be a boy, they want to be a girl, but the DNA is what you're born with.
That's right.
You can't change the DNA. people are saying, well, this and that, and legalizing this and legalizing that, and they're doing it, and it's all a ploy of the enemy. And so you said to humble yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How was your life before? Were you kind of a macho, proud guy that was just, I'll do what I want to do?
Right, it's a good question. I was just in bondage of my own passions, in bondage of when you wake up in the morning and you live in abject poverty, and you walk out in the streets and all you see is drugs being sold. You know, my mother was an ex-heroin addict, you know, no father in the home. And basically the streets in New York City becomes like your home. It becomes your father. It speaks to you, it calls to you, you know. And so with that being said, in 1981, 82, the crack epidemic had hit New York City. And so me and my brother decided to get involved in selling drugs, selling crack, cocaine. And at first we were working for someone, and then we learned how to cook it. And then when we learned how to cook it, you know, you'd be surprised, marketing skills and numbers and ounces and 2 ounces and 3 ounces, 1 key to 2 keys to 3 keys, and you're cooking all that up, and then you start selling in a block, then you got a whole street locked down. It was just chaos and madness in the midst of that.
You know, Pastor, you sound like somebody in a delicatessen. When you want a half a pound, it goes on the scale. And what they do is, it's a little more. Do you want a little more?
Right.
You take it off a little bit.
Right.
And I think the key, from what I understand, Pastor, is when there is a single parent and it's a male parent, the child is more stable and steady to be one that's going to be out of trouble rather than in trouble. But when it's a female that is the parent there, it's pretty much chaos.
Yeah. At a certain age, my mother couldn't control us anymore. I mean, when you think about single parent homes led by mothers, you know, especially with strong boys, that once they become of age where testosterone kicks in and you can't control them anymore, no discipline was set there, you know, you basically, you're living on your own. You know, I'm also a former correction officer. When you think about Rikers Island, 92% of the inmate population comes from 7 communities of broken families.
Broken families.
Broken families.
And that's what the devil wants to do.
Right.
Break up the family.
Right.
And he'll do anything he can, because, I don't know, there used to be a billboard years ago, it might still be around some places, families that stay together, pray together.
Oh, pray together, stay together.
Okay,
right.
The other way around.
Yeah.
Pray together, stay together.
So when you think of the 7 communities, we're talking about Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville, East New York, South Bronx, South Jamaica, Queens, Harlem, and the Lower East Side.
Wow.
I was from Harlem, Spanish Harlem, and seeing these young men, they were smart, intelligent, just that their passions to engage in the streets, their passions to get the quick dollar, their passions to get fame and look at me. And the sad thing is that that's a setup from Satan, because we think if we can get the fast buck, we're going to have success. But really, we're just setting ourselves up to become incarcerated by making bad choices.
Did you have a lot of anger growing up because you had no dad?
Absolutely. Rage, you know, you ask yourself the question, why don't I have a father? You know, why isn't my father here? You know, and then, you know, you're out there in the streets trying to fend for yourself, and you don't have no guidance, and you're angry. And so what happens? You have the gangs in the streets, you have the drug dealers in the streets. They become your father. They become the influencers. These are the guys that come and talk to you, and they give you guidance. And, oh, everything's going to be all right here, man. Smoke a joint and just share your problems with me. So we're having drug therapy, you know, by smoking a joint and sharing our heartbreaks, you know, so that it became even more dysfunctional. So the street became a form of community and family as opposed to the home, because the home is broken. You see, if the father's out of place, the children become displaced, and the mother has no place to guide her children, to speak into their lives, because the father plays a very crucial role in the stability of a family. That's important.
And when that is not in place, as you said, chaos rules. And did you have that chaos in school?
Oh.
Did you go to school?
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
skip school?
No,
Were you bullied? Did you beat?
Well, it was
have
interesting.
fights,
You
fighting?
talked about rage and anger. Well, what happens? You go to school, right?
Angry.
You're angry, right? So now you're in the school, and your parents can't buy you the nice sneakers,
Yeah.
as opposed to other kids that got nice sneakers. So now comes the commentaries, talking about how you dress and how you look. So what happens? You start to fight. You got the bullies in the school. And when you think about going to school, junior high school in the 70s, it was crazy.
Crazy.
You had heroin, you had gangs, so you had to fight all the time. So it was always fighting, always. You had to be careful not to walk through this neighborhood. Make sure you don't walk down this block. You got to avoid this place. And then there was those times that you just encountered 3 or 4 guys. So either you're going to run or you're going to fight. I wasn't a fast runner, so I was able to get 2 or 3, but after that I was exhausted. You get beat up, and then you just brush it off, shake it off, and start all over again the next day, and that forms even more hatred and more anger.
Did you go to church at all when you were young, Pastor?
The only thing I knew about church was when my family, some member got married or someone died. That's the only time I went to church. The only thing I knew about a church is the cross that I bought before I came to Christ, the gold cross that I had on my neck, that I used it just for flashing to appeal to women. It had no representation for me, no symbolism. Didn't even understand why Christ was on the cross. I had no idea.
Just like what I opened up in.
Yeah.
It just some of the crosses go so far down. It's like amazing. I mean, and it's for flashy. But the thing that God is so patient. And I want to ask you, Pastor, was there any time in your being in the wrong environment where you know now that it was God that protected you?
Oh, my Lord. Man, I'll give you one short story. One of my friends had a problem with his girlfriend. She went to a school down in the Lower East Side. I forgot the name of the school. So my friend came to me and says, hey, man, somebody's harassing my girl. Why don't you come me over there? We were in high school. I was in the 10th grade. And I said, all right, no problem. Let me go get my gun. So I got a Derringer. I used to have a Derringer, right? And I put it in my jacket. So we're Jane Addams High School. We're taking the train to go to Jane Addams High School. We're on the 6th train during rush hour, right? So we go downstairs. We get off of 96 to 86th Street. We go downstairs to grab the 5. While I'm walking on the platform, stupidity, because when you're young, you're dumb, right? So I put my hand inside my jacket to kind of position my gun. And what happened was it was a single action gun. So a Derringer, when you just cock it back, it stays like that. It's not like, then you got to squeeze the trigger. You got to cock it back and squeeze the trigger, right? So it's called a single action. So I put it in. When I put it in my jacket, it cocked back, not knowing that it cocked back.
Cocked back?
Yeah, so it's inside with the hammer back. So I put my hand in and I squeeze the trigger by mistake and the gun goes off. Right next to my heart.
Whoa.
In the middle of rush hour, boom!
Wow.
Smoke is going up into the air, right?
Whoa.
And the bullet didn't even touch my body.
Whoa.
It didn't touch my body. I'm walking, and I said, if I panic, I'm going to get arrested. So all I did was just walk. And people are looking like, what happened? The smoke is just going up. I just kept walking real calm. The timing was great because the train just pulled up. Wow. The doors open. I go in. I start running from train to train, opening up the doors, panicking. And I'm looking for the gun. And I'm like, what the heck? What happened to the gun? And I'm saying, man, it must have dropped or something. Because, in the frenzy of the panic. Sure. So I sit down and my heart is pumping. And I'm there like, oh, Reverend John. I'm like, oh. And then finally I felt the gun. The blast broke the hole, and it was in between the lining and the outer part of my jacket, hanging at the bottom of my jacket.
No, man.
The bullet didn't even touch me.
People say they're atheists because they want to do what they want to do, and they don't have any accountability, they think. If they watch your show, they have to know that there's a God in heaven who watches over those who he knows are going to come to Christ.
Oh, yes.
He spared your life because he had a purpose and a plan for your life. Because, I mean, it could have fallen out. You could have been arrested. You could have been killed.
The bullet could have came right into my body,
into your body there.
Bled out to death.
I believe it was the angels that was protecting you that brought that right down there.
Yes.
To where it was. And you said one story. You have another one there?
I got another one. Let me give you one more.
Another one,
Let me give you one more. And so now I'm in the drug game. I'm a drug dealer. Okay. I'm coming out of school. By the way, I financed my college education with
Through
drug
drugs,
money.
drug
Okay.
money.
So I'm coming out of school, and I go into my apartment. I open up the door. There's a half a key of cocaine, all right, and then the other half was in crack. And the razor was there. You talk about scales. The 3-beam scale was there. We had about $88,000 on the sofa in a bag. Some was in a sneaker box, like 4 or 5 sneaker
Now, you said
bags.
school. How old were you?
Oh, I was about 24, 25. City college. I was at City College.
So
at the time.
basically, you're at an age now where you're like a pro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm gone.
You're gone. Mm-hmm. And so go on.
So here I am, City College. You know, I don't know why I'm going to school. I guess it was just to anesthetize the pain. You know, and the reason why I was in school, I was playing Division III basketball. So here I am playing basketball.
Drug deal.
Yeah, and selling drugs, and then going to college. And the dichotomy of trying to get educated. You come back to the hood and you love the hood, but then you go to college and you're listening to stuff. So anyway, I go into my apartment. And I lived on the 12th floor, I never forget. And literally, it was so quiet in my apartment. I had just opened up a sociology book, and I said, let me just read, prepare for some work. And, and I'm wondering where my brother is and the crew. They needed to bag this stuff up and get it out the house. And all of a sudden, I heard the door, boom. It was a sound like, boom, for the elevator, right? Then I hear, okay, well, what room is, what's 12B? 12C, 12B.
Wow.
The whole 12th floor main lobby was full of cops.
Whoa.
I don't know how many cops were there, but I've been hearing radios,
Wow.
I'm hearing chinging of chains,
Wow.
I'm hearing footsteps, right? And then I looked out my window, there's 4 or 5 cop cars by the entrance. They were on the sidewalk, blocking the entrance, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I'm gone. They're going to bust my door down. They're going to come in. They're going to see the drugs, the money. I'm looking at 20, 15, easy. And I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? And they're knocking on the door. So I take all the drugs and I take all the money, wrap it up in a blanket, and I run to the furthest room in the back, and there was a window. And I'm standing by the window of the project. And if they bust the door, I was just going to drop it down the window. And there was like a steps to go down into the basement of the project window. So it would have fell down there. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing my next door neighbor, who prior to that, 5 minutes before the cops came, she had asked me for eggs and milk. This is just what it is when you live in the projects,
Yeah.
And her name was Matilda. I'll never forget. God used her to save my life. And I said, Matilda, you got to stop smoking crack. Here, just take the whole dozen of eggs. Take the milk. Don't worry. She goes, John, I love you so much. You're so kind. But she was one of those sisters that would curse you out in a minute. So I'm in the back room. She opens up the door and says, why are you knocking on that door? Ain't nobody in that apartment. And they said, do you know John Lopez? No, he's in school and he works. Do you know Teresa Lopez? She works. And do you know Tony Lopez? No, he don't live here no more. There's nobody there. Why are you knocking at that? For some reason, she was a little short lady with a big mouth. And they decided, they just gave her a card and they left.
Miracle.
That's all I can say.
Miracle.
Man. That's all I can say, man.
God is great and wonderful and protecting. I've had that happen to me with drugs in the car. I was pulled over, right? I had the marijuana underneath the seat, front seat. He puts the flashlight underneath the front seat and doesn't see it.
Oh, my Lord.
It was underneath. It was maybe not in the front, but right in, like this much over. And he goes around the other side, and he opens up the glove compartment, doesn't see anything, doesn't put the flashlight underneath, right? And said, okay, we impound your car because your inspection sticker wasn't done.
That's crazy.
Underneath. And we're talking, in the 70s with the, you're going. I mean, his flashlight was right underneath, almost just like this, and God blinded him from it. How did you come to Christ, John? Did somebody finally share the gospel with you?
It was through tragedy. Sometimes, and I want to, whoever's listening to this, I want them to understand.
Why don't you speak in that
Okay,
comment?
I want you to understand that crisis always creates clarity. I'll say that again. Crisis always creates clarity. There's something about crisis in a man's or in a woman's life that makes the heart pliable to hear and see the hand of God move in the supernatural. And so, I would like to share with you, Reverend Joseph, that we became big. I mean, a lot of money. We had a payroll. We had 2 houses in Puerto Rico. I had 3 motorcycles.
You were a corporation.
It just became outrageously, the money was just moving.
Flowing.
And we realized that at some point, it was around 1990. We started in 81, but around 89 and 90, the crack epidemic was plateauing. It was plateauing, and we knew that at some point we were just going to get arrested. A lot of people were going to jail. Some people were dying. Crack did its damage already to the communities, and at some point I was saying, this has got to end. So I was thinking that we were either all going to get arrested or one of us was going to die. But we were so trapped in that lifestyle, there was no way out. God had to come and rescue us.
You probably, people are like that today, but not so, maybe in the drug epidemic, but in who they are and the power and the money. That might be good stuff, and they don't realize they're in a trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happened, Pastor?
So my brother had stopped. He went to Puerto Rico. My mother begged him, enough is enough. We made a lot of money. I said, enough is enough. Graduated from college. I don't know how I got this job in corrections, through the investigation. Again, another miracle, right? And so my brother moved to Puerto Rico, and we gave the spot to somebody else. But they didn't know how to manage. They didn't know how to do anything. So that fell apart. So they begged my brother to come back. And I told him, stay over there. Stay over there. We already made our money. We don't need it. So of course he comes back because of loyalty in the streets. And about 2 months later, they brought some kid from Kansas, Junction Boulevard. He was a contract killer, and they brought him in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a contract killer. They brought him in, and on the night that my brother was murdered, I'll tell you what happened. And we were ready to go hang out. I'm hanging out with my friend, and there was this gentleman, this young adult. He was under a tree. It was a dark spot. In the projects, there's these dark areas that that you stay in if you want to be, you don't want to be so conspicuous, and you want to do something, hurt someone. So the kid was standing in a place that looked very, he looked suspicious. So I told my brother, who's that guy over there? Oh, he goes, no, don't worry, Jay. He's a lookout for the drug dealer. I said, no. The lookout doesn't hide under the trees. The lookout will be by the street so he can get a good visual when the cops are coming. Why is he over there? So I told my brother, he was on the phone. I said, get off the phone. Get out of here. I'll meet you at the Copacabana tonight. It was a Friday night. I'll meet you at the Copa. Don't hang out. Look, there's nobody around here. None of our crew is here. That they're doing their business. You got to get out of here. So he leaves, right? I go and I walked over to the guy. Now remember, I'm a correction officer. I carry a gun. So I pulled my gun out and I looked at him up and down, like saying, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. And then my other friend carried a gun, and he says, Jay, everything's all right? I said, no, everything is fine. We get in the car, we leave. They beat my brother. Back then, there was no phones. There were beepers, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they beat my brother back to the telephone booth on 101st Street, 3rd Avenue, and he came to the phone booth. That same kid, I'll never forget that night. He had a black Carhartt pants. He had a Carhartt jacket. He had a football mask that was hanging down. He had a hoodie, a black hoodie, and Timberland boots. And the guy went right up to my brother on the phone, shot him in the head one time. My brother pushed him and shot him twice in the chest. He died that night. And it was that night, you talk about rage, Reverend Joseph. I was already angry. I was already frustrated. And so what happened was that night, I got beeped 101 3rd Avenue, 101 3rd Avenue. So we raced over there, and it was already taped off as a crime scene. And I looked down, and I put my hand on the blood, and I remember there was a church there, Holy Agony, and I saw the cross. And I said, I guarantee you, I'm going to kill the person that killed you. So I was consumed with revenge. And so we rushed to the hospital to see, they took him to Metropolitan Hospital. When I get there, the doctor comes out, his blood all over his thing. The thing that covers his face comes down. He says, we tried, but we couldn't. He just lost too much blood. That's when I went cold. And after that, we were going around the neighborhood. I had about 7 Tech 9s. They had semi-automatic guns, with one with a silencer attached. So we were in the van looking and looking and looking to see if we can. All I wanted to do was find one. We would have took him up to Orchard Beach, cuff him, shot him in the knee, make him confess, find out, snitch, whatever. We couldn't find nobody. That night, I ended up going to my room. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And my cousin calls me on the phone. And he says, Chino, he was a Christian from Puerto Rico, serving the Lord for about 2 or 3 years and always ministering to me and always encouraging me. He was a nut, and he gave his life to the Lord. There was something different about him. Something there. And I knew it was the Holy, I didn't know it was the Holy Spirit back then, but now in hindsight, I knew that the Spirit of God was on him and he was speaking to me. And so he gave me this verse. Romans chapter 12, verse 19. And it says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I will repay. He said, put it in God's hands. It's over, Chino. That was my nickname that my family called me. He said, it's over, Chino. Let it go. You got to let it go. What did I do? I hung up the phone on him and I started arguing with God. And I had this conversation with God. It wasn't in a church. It wasn't through a pastor. And I said, God, where were you when I needed a father? Where were you when my mother used to take me to the heroin spot and leave me with the lookout and go and shoot her dope and walk back from 110th Street nodding, and I had to hold her at 9 years old walking all the way home? Where were you? And I had that argument. Where were you? Where were you? I fell on the floor and I said to him, if you're for real, Lord, if you're for real, reveal to me your love and your justice, and there will be no more bloodshed. But it has to be you.
And here's the thing. He did it.
Oh.
And vengeance was his. You're saved, pastoring, and God has great work continue for you. What a wonderful testimony, Pastor John.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing how God took what Satan meant for evil and
Yes.
turned it around for good. Ladies and gentlemen, what more could I say? You've heard the testimony of somebody who was ready to go out and to do something real bad, but he didn't because God intervened. Like he intervened with him twice before, many times before, where he could have died. Come to Christ, receive him into your life. You'll have a changed heart, a changed mind, and God's got a purpose for your life. Thank you for watching our broadcast today.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole